So I want to welcome Shannon Scott-Stoneman tonight. Shannon and I are in seminary together at Bright Divinity School, and she lives in Oklahoma. So like me, she's mainly an online student. And but just in the little bit of time that we have had classes together and group texting and study stuff together, I picked up some things about Shannon that have intrigued me and inspired me. And man, is she a great role model in terms of really following your heart in faith. And that is one of the reasons I asked her to be one of the speakers about the heart. So we have been spending the month of August has kind of been a series on the heart. And I was reading a study book that was centered on the practices of the Desert Mothers and Fathers. And it was there was a little brief reference about the fact that the heart has a role in every religious tradition and philosophical tradition. And I was surprised by that and curious as to, what is it and how is it different, or is it different across all of these world religions and traditions? And so I decided to invite some of our other friends on that are of other religious practices. We've had a Sufi imam, we've had an Orthodox Jew, we will have a Buddhist, a naturalist, and I did the Christian perspective part one, we'll say, last week. And that part two will be coming. And then tonight, I look forward to hearing what you have to share with us. But just really kind of thinking about this concept of letting our heart lead us in our faith journey and our spiritual practices, and what role does that play for each of us. And I think hearing the stories of other people and other traditions has been really enlightening and inspiring. I know to me, I hope it has to many of you too. And I'm going to open with a music video so you can just kind of settle in. I chose this video. It's put to snippets of the movie Patch Adams. Are you familiar with the movie Patch Adams with Robin Williams? But it's Rod Stewart's Faith from the Heart. And when I hear this song, particularly the chorus, to me, it just really speaks to what I also have sensed as the strength that Shannon has, and that I have been so inspired by, and seeing her courageous faith journey. And so I'm going to play that just to kind of open us up, and then I'll pass it to you, Shannon, and you can do what you want. You can make this a conversation back and forth with the group and questions. You can tell stories and save Q&A for later. It's totally up to you. We're a very, very casual, intimate group here. So welcome, and I'll begin with some music.
It's been a long road getting from there to here. It's been a long time, but my time is finally near, and I can feel the change in the wind right now. Nothing's in my way, and they're not gonna hold me down no more. No, they're not gonna hold me down, 'cause I got faith on the heart. I'm going where my heart will take me. I got faith to believe I can do anything. I got strength on the soul, and no one's gonna bend or break me. I can
Welcome, Shannon. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you for having me here. I thought what we could do for a second is just be still in our hearts. Since we're talking about our hearts tonight, let's just sit and we can put our hand over our heart a minute and be reminded that how we're interconnected to every heart on the whole planet. And so the one thing that we're continually connected with is the heart. Billions of us have the same heartbeat that connects us. And um, just want you to feel your heart for a moment and let us give gratitude to our heart for what our heart does for us, what our heart gives to us. And I'm going to open up for a second and just say thank you to the heart that gives us faith. Thank you to the heart that gets us through times when we have no faith. And thank you to the heart that can break. And thank you to the heart that can give us grief and life and joy. Just thank you for these beats that are going on through our bodies today. So I just want to give ode and gratitude to our hearts that interconnect us to one another on this planet that we're living on in this journey. So I'd like to start there. So I've been very mindful about this talk as an Indigenous woman, and mainly because I can't speak for all Indigenous people. So I want to be very mindful as we open up together and I share a part of my faith journey with you. I would like to be very mindful that there are hundreds of Indigenous tribes on this planet. And I am a Chickasaw woman, uh, an Oklahoma woman. So my family was brought into Oklahoma, and my indigenous family was brought into Oklahoma before statehood. So I come from a genealogy from the Trail of Tears, and I come from obviously a white European background, German background as well. And so I have a very unique blend of spirituality. And I was listening to that song, and Rod Stewart is probably one of my favorite artists. So, what a great way to open up. And he says, I'm going to go where my heart leads. And that has been my whole life spiritual journey, was to go where my heart led me. So, I came from, I'm sure it's a very minuscule background of my complex spirituality, but I came from atheist parents, and I became a right Southern Baptist at a young age because in Oklahoma, you got on the vacation Bible school bus and you went to the Southern Baptist Church. Not a lot of disciples of Christ here in Oklahoma. We're getting there. We're getting there. And then I ended up spending a long time with my heart broken by the church and by many things that religiosity told me I wasn't enough of. And so I left the church for a long time, and then I became Catholic, deeply embedded in Orthodoxy. And then I moved from Catholicism to Eastern Orthodoxy to study the liturgy. So I have a part of my life has been deeply ingrained in studying ritual and the understanding of ritual. And at the season of my life, I am in what seminary gave to me was seminary gave me back a piece of myself as an Indigenous woman. Seminary led me back to me, to my religious, probably to my deepest spiritual self as an Indigenous woman. What I have been given now is the freedom that no book could give me, except for the freedom to trust the divine heart, the heart of God. And what I truly have learned as a seeker of the divine is that the divine is always seeking us with the heart. And I speak that because I truly believe that all of creation began with a heartbeat. And I believe that all life has a rhythm that we live in. And if you're Christian, that's the incarnation of birth and death and resuscitation or resurrection. As an Indigenous woman, everything fits into a cadence of life. Knowing I know every day that there is a rhythm that I live in, and nature teaches us those things. So I live in a liminal space between a Messiah follower, and I live as pretty much a pantheist of nature, knowing that I am deeply embedded and connected to the rituals of nature. And so this past year has been a year of me allowing myself the freedom to see how nature provides care for us. And as an Indigenous tribal member, it is really important for me to come back home to those sacred knowings that my ancestors were living in before colonialization. And I say that out of respect for my people and my tribe, and trying to rename what the heart was doing in our people's lives and in my life before we had religiosity, before we had religion brought to the United States. And so if that brings up conflict inside of you, I can stop and I can we can always check in. If anybody says, you know, I'm uncomfortable by something you say, you can bring anything to me as a person of faith and a person of witnessing my own story. So sometimes I don't want to feel like I'm attacking anyone. I'm just speaking my story of how I see my journey of the heart. So I was thinking about the heart. I was thinking about the Beatitudes on my way home. I was praying. I just came from I'm a woman of the Woods group that I join, and I was thinking about the Beatitudes and what led me into a spirituality. And my spirituality was deeply mystical at the age of 10. I had a mystical experience with Jesus as a very young girl in a world where nobody was shepherding me. No parents were shepherding me. I had the, atheist parents, but I had a very mystical experience with Jesus. And Jesus came to me at a very young age and witnessed to me. I had a vision of him. And as a Messiah follower, what I learned is that the Beatitudes that Jesus taught were deeply indigenous. The Beatitudes are extremely spiritual in correlation to the way that we live with our heart, feeling and caring as people of faith. No matter what religion you are, if you're Sufi or Buddhist, the heart and the love that we have is deeply ingrained in our beings of human being as humans. And I was thinking about that journey. That journey is always a part of me as I move into an indigenous world of spirituality. And it is my heart that is always connected to the rhythms of the earth. I really experience the earth with a heartbeat. So when I'm out in my yard, in the gardening, and when I'm out on our land, we have a farm, there is a deep connection to this cadence that the earth has that I experience. So God, for me, is deeply embedded into nature and how each animal of creation has a heart, has love for their communities. They live in communities. I have a natural habitat here. And I think about how creation created us in communities and communal ways of living. And in those communities is where our heart breaks. It just breaks. We break open and we crack open, but then we love deeply and we love within eroticism. And then all of it is in the complexity of that. How we fit into that is how we navigate our spiritualities. And so for me, living free to let God lead has been a lot of letting go, a lot of letting go of in deeply embedded theology and allowing myself. And I'm a mother of 11 children in this complex world at this time. And so I've had to learn what it means to love in the fullness of living, letting go. And so the heart continually wants to heal, and the heart continually wants to love. And I'm speaking from my heart, but the heart has to, in order to fully let go and to fully love, there is a freedom that we're gifted with, and then we have to let go of where these relationships that we live on this earth take us. And so it's very important to live in communal relationships. As I'm a pastor, I am an eco-spiritual chaplain, and I see myself with so many hats, but it all comes down to the foundation of how I care and love my neighbor, how I care for every person that I come into contact with. It's really important to me as a spiritual leader to a tribe, is how do I navigate the heart of heartbreak around the spiritual care of the world. And I was in supervision this week. I'm going to be an eco-spiritual care chaplain for 50 kids this fall. And I have to learn to love them in freedom of no embedded theology. So this is research and challenging for me, because we have our belief systems and we wrap them neatly in our present lives. And I've been asking God, the earth, how do I love the way that you love? How does God or creation love us? And I would like to open up that conversation. How do you experience love of a creator or love of the earth? And I would be interested to see how you experience that.
I'm willing to jump in. Um, so I am somebody who I love plants, I love flowers, I love trees. Like I am usually like I love it all. If I see bees struggling, I'm like, it's okay, I got you, and I put it in some sugar water with some leaves and flowers. And so I always look for what is going on around me with whether it's big or small. But what I love is we have this beautiful tree, and it was a California pepper tree, so it looks like a weeping willow. And when I would go to water or do something in the yard, it was always, I found it funny because normally it wouldn't touch me, but when I go out into the yard, it would be like all of a sudden in my hair. Or if I was sitting down on the porch, all of a sudden I'd feel it like touching my back. And so I always found that to be like my wife knows I love this tree. I loved it so much. And we named it, we called her Gertie, like a mixture of Gaia and I can't remember the other one because that was her name. We put them both together and had Gertie. Um, and so we do like it's there is more to what we see. And I'm a big believer in that. I'm a big believer in like I talk to my plants, I sing to my plants. Like and there's scientific proof that there is a response to that. I look at it and go that everything has a being, whether it's one that can talk to me or not, I don't know. But it's something that I do look at, whether it's a bee. I'm sorry, but black widows scared the bejesus out of me, so they don't get as much courtesy. But most anything else does, to the point of me being like, this is your world too. Let's make sure you can survive it. Um, and that's usually how I work with the world around me. Um, I absolutely need it. Without being able to spend time in the garden or spend time outside, it feels so hollow. Do you feel the disconnect? So yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else on how we love the way God loves? How you
How do
love.
how do you experience love? Like, how do you just experience love? How does love come to you?
In a breeze, in a nice sunny day. I mean, it's if you buy into the premise that we are all connected, if we're all connected through God, everything that happens through Him and into us. So anything from a rainstorm to humidity, snow, whatever, even down to others' emotions or animals, all show love. Um, so I think it's much more universal than we might like to believe.
Thank you, Rick.
Of course, let's not forget, I could be completely full of crap too. So just a disclaimer there.
So could I. So I'll disclaim it too. Put that out there.
I guess my thing was initially just on what isn't human, like what is around us that isn't human, but on a person to person basis, I mean that can be experienced in many ways. It could be by helping somebody when you see it. It could be by just saying hello and being a nice person to somebody. Like it's you can share your love by just being kind to other people as you see them, as you meet them, and 99% of the time it's reciprocated. It's somebody says hi back. Now there are those people that are like those are the ones that just sit there and like, I hope you have a better day. Like because there's so many different ways of expressing and receiving love with everybody. Um, whether it's big or small.
I think laughter is one for me. Um, because I think that there is a moment where there's that connection. Whenever there's that connection that exhibits laughter, um, I think love is alive and well in that space.
It's interesting that you said that because I was at Dennis's last night with some friends, and he had said after they had all left, he's like, it was so nice to hear the laughter. He goes, it made the house feel alive again. And I was like, then we'll bring more.
Laughter is a look into your soul and sharing your soul with someone. Because to get someone to laugh, or for someone to laugh at something you're saying, you've got to have some commonality somewhere. It's kind of hard not to say something that you might think is funny, and they'll look like, what? I get that a lot. But I think there's a whole commonality there, and I think humor's right. I think laughter it is a giant joining thing.
I think that's telling that Michelle picked Patch Adams with Robin Williams, who was somebody well known for expressing laughter with everybody, and wanting that, like showing his inner side and letting that be how he made people laugh. I'm just throwing that out there since that's what we started this off with.
Thank you. Is it Patrice? Did you have something, Patrice?
Well, um, me, music, good conversation, and laughter goes a long way because you don't really have to know the people, but if you start a subject or a conversation, you got them. You can show love by your action, and you can show, just as we just had this bad tornado, there are people coming out of every woodwork who don't know us, who don't know each community. So they are spreading their love by coming together, giving the things that they need, and embracing no matter where they come from. So that's how I vision love. Especially, I was thinking about a butterfly that I seen when I had came out the house. This butterfly don't know you. This butterfly don't know the uh the characteristics of how you are. Is it don't need no permission to love. It just fly and maybe just come past you. And you be like, oh, but that butterfly is not even thinking about you. But after you see the butterfly, you feel a little bit better. That's just in my perspective. And that's how I vision. Just, yeah, that's it. If you
Thank
understand.
you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
thank you.
Hmm.
I have one more. That just made me think of something that happened to me while I was in Texas recently with mom. I was working in the yard in the garden and trying to trying to save these lilac bushes that my great grandmother planted.
Mhm.
And you're talking about seeing, Patrice. That thought came to me earlier about love is when we see someone or they see us, it's how we feel love. Um, and so I was in this garden and I was doing stuff in all of these lilac bushes and minding my own business. And along comes a golden dragonfly. And it landed really close to me and just stayed. And it was like it actually settled on the top of the stick and was looking my direction. I don't think it would go to sleep with me that close, but it just stayed perfectly still and it just hung out with me in the garden while I was working in the lilac. I kept looking at him. I took pictures because I was like, he's going to fly away any second. I'm just going to get too close and he's going to fly away. And he never left, just stayed and looked at me. And I just felt like I was receiving, I felt so loved and seen in that exchange. And of course, I couldn't help but wonder if there was some connection to the spiritual world there as well. Being that I was in my great grandmother's garden, or that I had lost my father 6 months earlier, or that, there was some other experience. I had an experience in the Philippines this summer. I went to my great uncle's grave. And I don't know if I shared this with everybody on here or not, but my sister does genealogy and discovered that my dad had an uncle who died in World War II in the Philippines. And I was there for a pilgrimage, religious pilgrimage trip. And um, since I was going to be there, I had to go find his grave at the American Military Cemetery. And when we got there, and I took a few moments alone, everybody that was with me kind of stepped away to give me space. I'm thinking, what am I supposed to do? I don't know this man. I don't even know much of the history of this man, but I did know that we are keeping his story alive thanks to my sister's work. And I just talked to him. I talked to him at the grave and reminded him that he is loved and he has not been forgotten and that his story is being told. And a bumblebee came and swirled above the grave. And whether it was responding to his soul, his energy in that space, I don't know all of that, but I know that it wasn't a fleeting moment. The bee came and stayed for like 5 minutes over the grave. And another bee came at one time later, and the two danced together. And it was just such this incredible experience that when I was back in the lilac bushes with a dragonfly looking at me, I I just went right back to the bumblebee, and I'm like, maybe because you feel this so much love in this moment is because of this creature's presence and this and seemingly seeing me and seeing my heart in that moment. I'll stop.
Well, and as an Indigenous woman, that is so much a part of my spirituality. And I think that it's really important for us to name these experiences because this is the divine showing up. This is the divine interconnecting us to the past, the present, the future through God's creatures. And however, I mean, in the old, Hebrew Bible, God came in the form of a bush and a bush. And so within that imagination of prophetic imagination, um, it's really important to acknowledge these moments that we have as sacred moments, as the divine showing up. And it's not theological. It doesn't feel theological, but it is interconnected to the heart and to the spirituality of each of us when we have these experiences. Go ahead. Or Mita? Am I saying that?
Oh, Sarmita.
Yes, I just
Armita.
wanted to
Yes, please
chime
go.
in. What a beautiful conversation. I just wanted to chime in. So, Michelle, everything that you experience, and many of you out there, and the good thing is I've been on retreat with every one of you. I'm yet to meet Shannon in person, but I think we've been in nature together. But this is nothing, there's no coincidences. Everything is definitely an orchestration of the divine. And so energetically, of course, when the butterfly lands on you or stays with you, or the bird comes in and stays in the tree for 3 hours, not budging, on your dad's birthday or something like that. Like these are not at all coincidences. So it's beautiful that you have um, gotten the golden opportunity to have had the observational pause to be able to um, experience it, witness it, feel it, question it. Because within our own human realm, we're a little limited, but boy, that language, that message is extremely strong at that time. No coincidences. And I'm not a person of North American or American or South American indigenous background, but definitely coming from an ancient, peoples, just like each of us do go back in that time frame. But from a practice standpoint, this is something that we acknowledge as part of our own, I guess, faith traditions, that the natural world is no separate from us. And when we do our um, um acknowledgement of our past peoples, we feed nature after we do these remembrances of them, and the birds come and the animals come and they'll see things that you've never seen before. Or maybe you didn't get to do those kinds of rituals, but then they appear. These these creatures, these energies will come through, and it's just truly phenomenal, and it's beautiful. And we can definitely question it, but then why not, right? Like, why wouldn't that happen? Hey, that's our gift.
There we go. I also think part of it, Ranu, is that we have to be open to it. Because it could happen. I'm sorry, excuse me. It could happen all the time around us, but if we weren't open to it or cognizant of it, we'd never know. So I think there's a whole idea of keeping your spirit or your soul or whatever open and just letting things wash over you can help a lot.
Yeah, be open to noticing, taking that time out. And I knew the new generation, they're craving this. Their noses are on phones as are ours too, and our devices, but they're craving that. Do you know the biggest trend right now among young people is bird watching?
What?
I Yes, yes, I read this or I heard it on the radio. big, huge trend. I'm like, trend? That's all we could do right, Sarah? Like what we do in Canada growing up as a teenager. But this is the thing, because what this does, these practices, as our indigenous brothers and sisters always knew, is that if you just pause long enough and simple and think about it, our senses are gifts to us. Not even all of us have all five or all six or all whatever they may be. Maybe we don't have them all, but the if we have them, boy, we could really enjoy using them, and all the messages will come through if we just take the time. But we're in a very rushed environments these days. And I hope that we can reconnect with that opportunity to use our senses to pull in the beauties of all the messages that are coming through nature for us to witness.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. You know, I was thinking about how do we stay as an Indigenous woman? The drum is critical for many rituals in Native American and Indigenous music is it's the universal language of it connects us with no words. We can experience the bursting of our hearts. Like music is probably one of the things that interconnects my family through play and our spirituality. And I was thinking about the daily practices. That was one of the things I was thinking about is how do we create daily practices around or rituals around caring for our heart, being tender with our own selves. And that's really an important part of my life as a mother is naming the things in the body, naming the things that break our heart, not just the joys, but the things that really break our heart. And I am a trauma one chaplain, so I have sat with hundreds of people in the most tragic heartbreak, the things that break you completely apart. And so I was thinking, what are the practices as an Indigenous woman? The medicine wheel is a part of my contemplative practice, and it's interconnected to the four directions. It's interconnected to the ancestral realm, and there's a daily invitation I have in my daily practices of acknowledging the the ancestral realm that surrounds me, my ancestral realm and my sacred hoop. And I have children that are as diverse as ultra conservative to ultra liberal to very complex. It's pretty complex having 11 children that are adulting by now. But the one thing we talk about is the inner circle of the self and the heart. And when we do break, and when our heart does break, because in creation, in the incarnation of the mysticism of creation in itself allows us to be fully broken, to have a fully broken heart, to be completely broken into, to hurt, to suffer. And I think about what daily practices in a world that is extremely divided. I don't know if I've ever witnessed a world this divided. And this is something that we do practices as well as a family is pulling it back into center and naming the brokenness of the heart and talking about what grief is, because grief was given to us through birth. And grief is the one gift, and I call it a gift. And I try, I know it's hard to be like, oh yeah, this is great. But grief tells us how much our heart loves. It names our love. Grief tells us how deeply we were cared for by another, or how deeply we are interconnected to the brokenness and suffering of the world. And so for me, I would like to just engage in a conversation as well around how do we have daily practices around a broken heart when somebody dies or tragedies happened. And I did love that Patrice talked about Tornado brought death, but then it opened up a well of people wanting to care. And so we have joy and we have hope, but we have broken hearts. And a human being, I have witnessed and I have felt and experienced deep agony. And for those that are Christian or Messiah followers, Jesus wept. And other traditions, we know that prophets wept and prophets broke. And we are the prophets of today in this broken heart. And so I want to be mindful as an Indigenous woman, there is a reclaiming within the medicine wheel. And so as me as my central with God, I have a practice where you move things outside of your quadrants of yourself, where you have to move pieces of suffering out into and I say the ancestral realm because I am deeply connected to my ancestors, whether I can name them all. I believe that the ancestral realm is extremely important to interconnect to as a woman. And it is a practice that is acknowledgement of the grandmothers that are here, my father that is here in the presence of spirituality, and that nothing truly dies in the realm of creation. The body, yes, we suffer death, but there is a continuation of life after death because the heart is connected in a deeply ancient love. And creation is creating in I'll say the madness of love, like just continually create throughout time space. And the ancient time, however long time is, I'm not going to pretend to know, and I don't need to know, and I don't need to know where the ship is going, other than I know that the God of creation had prophetic vision of love and love of neighbor. And so how do we move through this love when we are broken and we are, what are practices that can help each other? We can learn from each other in our brokenness, in our broken hearts. And I would like to invite that open conversation if you guys are open to that. And just tell me what you think about how do we navigate these things?
Ronnie?
I love this subject matter. I've been around some of you for some time. I think some of the things I've learned more recently in terms of words, because the sciences are catching up now, the somatic work, the feeling work, the observational work, the practices that you're asking about. I think we are so caught up by conditioned issues, and even things like colonialism, where there's a penalty. There's a penalty for feeling broken. There's a penalty for feeling sad, mad, even feeling, period. I don't know if any of you have ever grown up to say you shouldn't feel that way. No. And I'm thinking only over time did I recognize that there was just a lack of maturity yet happening, right? Just whoever has told you that they just haven't maybe been nurtured yet. And then we too are on that journey to figure a lot of this out through pain, and suffering. And that can be on a spectrum, right? Because what we feel, it may be a different kind of feeling for someone else through the same experience. So the practices, and this is something that I think some of you have experienced with me, but I was reading the other day that when Shannon, you mentioned music and how important that is. Well, again, those of us that are in a living body, our breath is our music. And so that's why some of these practices, when they ask you to just hone in on your breathing and just listen or pay attention to the breath moving from the nostrils, because maybe everything else is off, right? Until we're dead, we are at least breathing, right? It's maybe even hard to feel our heartbeat, but we can definitely feel our breath, because that's the end. When there's no breath, there is no more prana, no more life. And then beyond just these types of practices of paying attention to the breath, sitting in stillness and then feeling the breath or the rhythm of the breath in the chest. And the other things that I was reading on this article, and I'll share. It was like an Instagram post. I was shocked to see it, but it also talked about things humming. Singing is huge. Singing at a whole nother level. Many of the ancient understood mantras or chanting. Chanting is a big one. And as an indigenous woman, I'm sure you understand the drumming, the chanting, the and the humming. Like even if you can't open your mouth with the breath, you may be able to hum and you'll feel it here. And look at the vibration where it hits the heart, right? We're doing these kinds of sound making, the heart has to vibrate. It receives it. Other chakra systems will receive it too, depending on where you can direct it. Such beautiful things that have been happening for many, many, many millennia, but now people are able to research and test and make that statement. Another very practical when it comes to the broken heart or the broken, let's say, yeah, the broken heart, the hurt the things like tapping and EFT, the one that's really popular right now. I love, well, Jeff is on the call. He's the one who introduced me to Brad Gates, and he speaks it out while you're tapping. Like he says, I acknowledge and I honor myself and love myself while I acknowledge that I'm feeling really whatever, blank, 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 feeling mad, feeling sad, feeling angry, feeling heartbroken, feeling depressed, feeling elated, feeling joy, feeling like scared, whatever it is. And I love the way he is verbally encouraging us to follow him along and state these statements and then using our hands to do the tapping for that somatic acknowledgement. And then it becomes an EFT, right? Emotional freedom technique or a release. Energy is not necessarily having to stay within us. They just flow right through, just like the weather systems of our talk about nature. Like no energy system in the atmosphere stays in one spot all the time, right? So there's so many lovely things that are out there, and we don't need 100 of them. You maybe need two or three. And the most easy one that could be accessible to every single living human and let's say breathing person or animal is the breath. And if you're lucky to have pets, oh boy, they can reflect back to you. Or even young children, they kind of like can when you kind of get at their level and they're very uncomfortable, and then you kind of like you can mirror that. You can mirror their discomfort. You can mirror it, and then that means that you're validating what they're feeling, and then they may be able to say, "Oh, she's acknowledging me," or "He's acknowledging me," and then you can help them to move through as needed with whatever that energy is. You don't have to penalize him or say, stop it, or that's wrong, or like, what are all these labels, right? But if you can observe and regulate, and then silently, if we have to say, like, well, you don't hurt the other person, you don't want to hurt yourself, because these are the reasons, then intellect comes in, right? To guide us through some of that. So sorry, I took a long time. I'm so sorry.
Not at all. We talk about music being so important to everything. If you consider it for a few moments, we're constantly making our own music. Our heart is providing the beat. Our breath is providing the background. Our movements are providing rhythm. So I mean, we're our own built-in band. And I think that when we combine with others, it becomes other pieces of an orchestra. And we become greater through that. So I think that's why music interacts, why we identify so much with music. So anyway.
I just have to say that I love two examples of how both you and Ranu describe things because Ranu, when you said that you mimic children, like if they're sad, you kind of like mimic them and I didn't realize I do that, but I do that with all kids when I meet them, when I get to know them, I will mimic and I was like, oh wow, I do that. And usually that's kids are always with me. Like we were just out of town. My brother-in-law died suddenly. And so we were there for a funeral. And these five kids that I've only met once in their life before this, like didn't want me to leave because I was on their level playing with them, meeting them where they are. And I just didn't realize how much I was doing that and what that affects, how that affects them, how these children are drawn to me for that. Um, but it also was something, having them was something that made going through the celebration of life and this sudden loss of somebody a lot easier. Because they came at it of like, oh, Papa's gone. Oh, did he just eat too many Skittles? Because they knew he was diabetic. And he would say, I eat Skittles. If I don't have them, my blood sugar goes out and then I have to go to the hospital. And if I have too many, then I have to go to the hospital. So he would talk with them about it and they have these understandings. But these are kids that are 6 and below, the youngest being 2. And so you got to see them all each understand or kind of grasp the situation, as well as help their parents and their grandma, who was the one that lost her husband. It was just really interesting to watch this love and this like growth of these little kids that changed how everything was perceived and changed how we're meeting them where they're at. So I wanted to say thank you because I didn't realize how often and what that was until you had said that. And Rick, I want to say that was one of the nicest and most profound things that you did without having a joke about you being a bad person or thoughtless. And I absolutely love it because I think that's very true. And I love how music has affected you through your whole life. And that is a really great way of helping other people have an understanding of how wonderful and beautiful music can be. So that was my other thing. And now I'll be quiet. Okay.
So Shannon, we typically don't cut us off at an hour, but I want to be respectful of your time. So if we need to begin moving, transitioning into an end, I can see this group is really enjoying the dialogue. So I'm not gonna shut it down. I'll leave that to you to do how you would like to do that. Sometimes we go as long as 8:30, but
Okay.
you just do
Okay.
what feels right for you and your time.
Yeah, we'll just go with it for a little bit. Does anybody need a second break? Does anybody need just a few minutes to take a break? Or how does anybody have any needs? Any needs?
I could use
Y'all
some.
are good? Go, Rick, was that? Sorry, pardon me.
I could use some KFC actually, but
Okay, well, thank thank God they have DoorDash now. No, I'm open for a little bit longer to I'm here to learn. I'm really just here to see how as a spiritual director, one of the things I've learned is how the divine shows up to heal and to minister in a world that I just get to be a part of for a brief moment of time. And so I really appreciate it. Did anybody have any other things they would like to add about um, our conversation? Does anybody have anything they would like to say that they didn't get to say? Just want to check in, just do a quick check in. Um, one of the things I was thinking about for practices, since we were talking a little bit about practices, um, I had to get away from head theology as a chaplain who had sat with just hundreds of people dying, and one of a spiritual practice that I would just like to give you a chance to just think about as grown-ups, because we're grown-ups now. Some of us grow up really fast, is spiritual play. And one of my most important practices is spiritual play. And I think that spiritual play, as somebody who has suffered moral injury and I have a diagnosis of PTSD and trauma, is spiritual contemplative play. And as you move through the fall and you think about what these things are, this is just a seed I would like you to think about is, you know, the colloquy of play is almost indoctrinated out of us. The sheer imagination that we are created in. All theology is prophetic imagination. All talks of God is really it's prophetic imagination. And so, as a woman of moral injury and spiritual play is one of my favorite go-to practices. It is on this side of my house over here. Well, I do still have tons of toys. There's toys everywhere in this house. And so I think it's really important that as a healer to allow those that I travel with through direction or pastoral care in, to really awaken those senses of play, to come back into the child that is deeply, they're deep, our child is deep in us. And so I would like to invite you guys at some point, as you think about when we end our time together, what that would even look like. Like, let a little seed go into your bodies of what is spiritual play. And spiritual play is critical for allowing the heart to be loved on by God. It is the one thing when you see children with a baby doll, or you see, their toys and the way that they play, they're just experiencing the raw vulnerability of the self, and how the self can experience the imagination of love and freedom. And freedom is critical for spiritual growth and for spiritual formation. And I'm sitting here talking about spiritual play and spiritual formation to get together. But it's probably one of the things that is the most important thing to me, is to teach spiritual play. And that looks like many things. And one of the things I do in trauma care is having conversations with our 12-year-old self or our 9-year-old self, or sitting down and getting back out the pencils and playing with stick figures and writing love notes. And so, maybe throughout the weeks, you consider writing one love letter to yourself, just one, to you who you are at 5, 12, 20, 30, 50. And I just want to encourage that as you move forward, because we're really not that old. We're not, we're ancient. We live in an ancient world in the cosmos. And I try to get my children who are now in the 30s, I'm like, you guys really need to just play. You need to sit down and experience the divine like a child. And as if you come from a Christological background, through Jesus said, come to be like a child. Prophets have said, even Buddha, when you see Buddha with all the children. And I think that's a manifestation of God telling us, you need to kind of slow down and you need to experience life and the dignity of play, because play is the most dignified thing a human can do, is what I believe. As a woman of faith, a woman of freedom, like when I said, when we were listening to Rod Stewart, and I'm like, follow your heart. Had I not followed my heart, I would not have a world of religious experiences. I would have never. To follow your heart means you have to live out of fear. You have to move completely outside of fear. And you have to allow your freedom to unfold in you being your most creative self, or your most unique self. We were not created to be a uniformed human race. We were created individually, I guess by a diverse creator. I guess the creation needed a diversity to experience the fullness of creation. That's why we are all so intricately complex and unique. And so as y'all go on forward, I just would really like to encourage that and um, just invite that invitation of plate drawing. I do a lot of coloring and things to just sit down and talk to the places of the heart that are broken still. I'm going to turn my little light on for a second. So I really believe that the places of the heart that are broken, that are injured, or suffering, those are the places where play. And I liked how we talked about, is it Samita talked about Jeff talking through EMT or talking through the parts of the body. But what spiritual play offers is it offers you freedom. And what does it feel like to not feel free or to live free or to not feel like you can live in your prophetic imagination? And so before I got off, I just thought, are there places in your life where maybe you need some freedom to divine in the places where you might have some you might need to let broken into, like where does God need to come into creative play in your life where you don't have to be anything other than a child? And so if there's places, you don't have to tell me your places, but maybe ideas of what creative play would look like for you. Or can you open up to that colloquy between you writing and talking with God from a standpoint of the heart that needs to be talked to? And so if you like to talk about that, I'm really open. I'm just kind of interested in where you might need some freedom to explore in your life.
I was just thinking about something that you mentioned when you talk about being a child. Compared to God, or God's view, we're all children. So the idea of being being childlike automatically gives us permission to do that. Um, from that perspective, yes, from a grown-up perspective or from a human perspective, being a child is one thing, but in the cosmic realm of things, no matter how old we get comparatively, we're still children. And I think we should give ourselves the ability or permission to act like a child. So, just random thoughts.
I just thought about two things. Um, we were at the our church went on a retreat. It was called Rebuilding, Reset, Revive. So they had these two exercises that we didn't even know what we were going to do. So each person had to get a partner. And the lady put out some Twizzlers. And so each person had about, I would say, 8 Twizzlers. But you can only use one hand. Each partner only can use one hand. One hand goes behind your back. And then we had to tie the Twizzler into a knot. And we was like, how are we gonna do this? So we was in there strategizing, and doing our thing, and then there's this other game where we had these tiny Legos, but we only got 10 Legos. And uh each she said build a house. So we were like, how are we gonna build a house over just and these shapes were like and so it was a house, it was a church, and it was an airplane. and I got stuck on the airplane because everybody else had all the airplane wings, and I had, we had to end up on, and I was thinking about, she said, well, how did you feel? I was saying a little child trying to figure out where these pieces was gonna go and how we were gonna tie a knot because I was trying to tell him, I said, well, you hold this Twizzler and then we just tie the knot or I take this finger, you know, and I said, didn't it feel like we were like children like a long time ago? But we tend to forget that and tend to um, not know how to let your hair down. And then it was another instance where uh, it was something happening at the church. And so some of the kids came, and this one particular child, he has autism. And so I always color when I want to relax. So I just color. So I opened up the book, and he came up to me. He said, can you find the Spider-Man book? I said, yes, we need to do that because I said, come follow me. And then I got the coloring book, I got the markers, and he just sat by. I was coloring my thing, he was coloring his thing. And he said, are you done? I said, almost. I got to do one more thing. And so just interacting with them and it, it kind of brings back your inner child. And when it comes back, you just be I mean, personally, I can speak for myself. See, when I color, I get relaxed. I zone out. I don't care who see me color. I said you have to try something that will bring back your inner child. And that for me that is my comfort. That is I buy these books. It has scriptures at the end, but then it has a pattern on it and we have to color these patterns. And it was one particular one where you had to take these, I don't know what they are. They are billed by numbers and you color it by numbers. It's like a little dot. And it's tedious. And so I was like, oh, so tedious to get this in there. But then after that, I was like, okay, I'm going to try something new. So that's how I kind of get into my inner child or when something's broken, what you said, it was broken. And sometimes I feel just a little bit broken, so I have to bring myself back. So it could be coloring, it could be writing poetry, it could just be doing anything, or like Mariah is about 9 years old. She will find something for me to do. She'll get you know how you go to the Dollar Tree store and then you have to paint these figurines. She said, come sit down and paint with me. I said, oh, do I have to do that? You know I'm not an artist. But she said, when you get done, you're gonna be one. I said, well, why not? So that was my story. So my experience. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. Even though that took too long, I'm sorry. Oops, wrong one.
I was at a retreat for pastors a few years ago, and they had us doing spiritual play. And I can't tell you how uncomfortable I felt. And I'm comfortable in youth group game settings, and I like to scrapbook and do colored pencil books and sing, and I love to dance. And yet in a structured moment of spiritual play, I felt conspicuous and vulnerable and a little lost, almost like I felt, I guess, like not forced, but I felt it didn't feel natural. And Not that there was anything wrong with the exercises that we did or the fact that they having us do spiritual play. I think it was great, and we got into it eventually. At least I got into it eventually. Rachel's laughing at me. But for somebody who is really creative and likes to go have fun and is pretty much okay with whatever goes, I was surprised about that. That was not, that didn't come so easily for me. So it's good though that you brought it up, and I was writing down some of the things that Patrice's church did. I always have this habit of wanting to say, so what's the lesson in that game? What did the Twizzlers teach you, Patrice? Right? Instead of just allowing it to be what it is, allowing it to just be. I was talking with a friend today about grace, not to get us on a different topic, but I'm thinking a lot about grace right now. And the question was, well, what is grace? And I mean, what is it? You know, I was taking for granted that everybody had the same definition of grace that I had. And, you know, but to me, I guess my definition of grace, and this is the illustration, is that because that is, to me, is God's favor that we cannot do anything to receive. It's not transactional. It just is. And there's nothing we can do to even avoid it. I mean, we can shut down, say, I'm not going to receive it. We can try to dodge out of the way of it, perhaps, with our life choices. But at the end of the day, it still is. And I think that to me is also how the heart connection to God is that it's connection. We're connected through the heart, that rhythm that you talked about, Shannon. I think we cannot get out of the way of the heart of God. And on that note, I will let Rachel say her final word, and then we'll wrap up.
I was actually happy that you touched on what you touched on, because what I was going to say about spiritual play, for me, I get what you're talking about, because I have been singing my whole life. I was singing in elementary school, I sang in choirs, and then I got to high school and I had a choir teacher that was, it's not nice, but it fit her. We called her the Nazi director, because nobody was allowed to move. You were not allowed to, like, it was face forward, arms at your side, nothing else. And then sing as she wants you to sing. And that was hard to get into, because I had this structure and I was used to moving. But what was really hard is when I was done, I started with a gospel choir. They move all the time. And so it was so uncomfortable, because it had been so ingrained of like, no, 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 you're supposed to be standing there. You're supposed to be doing this. And the playfulness had been taken out of it for me. And now I'm in a choir that they're like, what is your problem? Why are you not moving? This is gospel. And I had to kind of grow into that of like, oh yeah, there's a beat. I can go with it. We're good. Let's move. Let's sing. And so I kind of get where you're coming from of being playful, and somebody who is always playful. And I would say that about you. And I would say that about me as well. I love to create. I love to play. I love doing all those things. But it was very uncomfortable to get out of something that was structured to me and back into enjoying it and having fun with it. And I did want to also ask Michelle, what was it? What did they have you do that was supposed to be playful? Like I guess, what was the type of playfulness they were asking you to do that felt out of your realm? And I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'm just curious.
I can answer it very quickly. I have no idea, because I felt so uncomfortable that I shut it out. I literally could not tell you. I have no memory of it other than the fact that they wanted us to do it, and I did not feel like I wasn't getting into it. That's what I remembered.
Basically, you're like, I'm a fish out of water and I don't like this. So I'll just keep swimming as I can. That's what it sounds like.
All right. Well, any final thoughts or questions for Shannon?
Shannon, it was very fun talking with you today. Thank you.
Thank you.
I also I wish I had my siblings on and my mom on. One, because they go by last name Scott in our family. And two, they would absolutely have loved to hear this today. So thank you.
Well, I'm hoping maybe we can get Shannon to come to a retreat.
That is there. It's somewhere out there. It's out there. It's
It
just been
is
it's a little
manifesting it.
hectic.
Well, late May, after school ends in Lake Tahoe, is our next retreat. So put it on your calendar, save the date.
Okay, that actually sounds like inviting, very inviting.
Yeah, for
That
everybody.
sounds so
The
fun.
save the date went out, but the more information is coming, hopefully in the next couple weeks. But May 20th through 23rd, and then you can extend it either way. Some people fly in and take extra days and turn it into a vacation. But May 20th through 23rd, 2027, on the Nevada side of Lake Tahoe. So
Thank you.
I'm just happy it's on my side of the country. I'm so excited.
Yeah, so we've had retreats all around the country, and our West Coasters have always gone east. And so this will be the first time that they actually don't really have to go very far. We're going to travel to them for a change.
I can drive to it and then be like, I have my own car. We're good.
You and Vikas will be driving up from San Diego.
Oh, goodness. I should just have them stop
Thank you
here
for
and then
having
I'll
me.
drive them the rest of the way.
That's right.
Sorry, Shannon.
No, I was just saying, I just appreciate being here. Thank you for the invitation. I'm very grateful to meet you all tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
I do
Well, let me
appreciate
close
it.
this with a word of prayer and thanksgiving for you and for this connection to the heart. Creator God, we thank you so much for connection, the connection that we feel through the rhythms of life and breath. We thank you for the connections that happen through laughter, through play, through grief. We thank you for the connections that bring us closer in love, and the fact that our hearts may be the center of our being, the host of our souls. We pray thanksgiving for the love that has been practiced, and that the heart reminds us that at the end of the day, you are love and we are loved. Go with us this week and bless us in the loving. Bless Shannon in her work, and we give thanks for her in the sharing and the telling, and that you would fall on her and fill her with your spirit as she goes and touches more hearts. We give thanks in your name. Amen.